going. Okay, kia ora. Kia ora koutou. Good morning and a warm welcome to our Service Delivery Committee meeting of the 15th of August. It is also Victory Day in the Pacific, which brought an end to war in 1945. And Lou Brown advised me that a flag has been raised in Anzac Green in commemoration. Now, just a reminder that we are live streaming today. And we have members of the public joining us today who have an interest in our first substantive item on the agenda concerning fluoridation. And that is being presented by Kane Titchener from the Tuamotu Community Board. Thank you for coming along to our meeting, and I wanted to explain at the outset the terms of conduct and behaviour for the meeting. Kane is the only person who has speaking rights, and that is limited to 5 minutes. All his material has been pre-circulated to councillors, so they've had the opportunity to read it. No one else has speaking rights, and any disruption is unacceptable. If this occurs, I will adjourn the meeting and I'll ask them to stop the disruption. And if they do not, the person concerned will be asked to leave. Thank you. So now we move into our agenda, and the first item is apologies. Do we have any apologies? All right, yeah, Susan, I think she's unwell. Yeah, thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Bruce. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Any disclosures of members' interest? Oh, yes, Liz.
Yes, I was just going to add the 100k flyers, an event that's held at Mighty River Domain. It is a road closure, but I just wanted to.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Thank you for that. Any late items? No, great. Could we confirm the order of the meeting? Thank you, Roger, and a seconder. Thank you, Lou. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And now we have the confirmation of the minutes of our previous meeting. Yeah, that's pre-circulated. Sorry about that. I think I've got the actually. Just a little bit of a technical issue. Thank you. Okay, so I'm on page 8 of the, well, they've been pre-circulated. So are there any issues with them? No, thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, that they be it? Okay, so I've got Roger and I've got Marcus. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And now we have our first substantive item, which is the recommendation from the Tuamotu and Kihiki Community Board on fluoridation. So I invite Kane. Oh, sorry, Martin Mould's going to introduce him, and then, yeah, we'll have Kane. Thank you, Martin.
Good morning, Chairperson and councillors. Just take the report as read and hand over to Kane.
Okay. Yeah, protocols.
Protocols.
Thank you, Martin, and welcome, Kane. It's great to have you here today, and yeah, we've seen you before on this matter, I think, as well. But we certainly want to hear what you've got to say. I also think there's been a separate item in Diligent that's got all of your material as well. I'll just remind councillors of that. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much, councillors. I'd just like to acknowledge Jill and Sally from the Tuamotu and Kihiki Community Board who've come along today to support this presentation. This is the Tuamotu and Kihiki Community Board presentation, so it's wider than just myself, right? I have got some concerns with the agenda, essentially around the item where the information from the Ministry of Health was presented in September 2022, and then there was the comment is no changes in this advice have been made since that time. there's been a massive research paper that's been published. I would have actually presented this in September when I was here last time, and I'm just bringing it to your attention now. It should have been published in May 2022, but for political reasons in the US it wasn't. All right. So this is the situation. I've been speaking around the country to various councils, Timarugi, Plymouth, Western Bay, plenty community boards, and doing public talks on this topic. So the National Toxicology Program is in the final stages of finalising a 6-year review of fluoride's neurotoxicity. They do the testing, research and analysis of agents to identify toxic effects, and they inform decisions by health regulatory and research agencies to safeguard the public health. That was established in 1978 as an interagency collaboration within the US Department of Health and Human Services. It's a partnership of National Institutes for Occupational Safety and Health, which was part of the CDC, the FDA, National Institutes for Environmental Health Sciences. So this is the top science organisation in the United States. This is the go-to organisation in the United States on these issues. The review was published in 2 parts, a monograph and a meta-analysis. Concluded that prenatal and early life exposures can reduce IQ. The meta-analysis reported that 52 of 55 human IQ studies, that's 95% consistency, showed a 7 IQ point reduction on average. And that's hugely concerning. It's so obvious, right? Of the higher quality studies, because you've got high and low quality studies, 18 of 19 of those studies showed a lowering of IQ. They found that there was no safe level of fluoride in water. So the top science is actually the Canadian and Mexican cohort data, and they found a reduction of IQ of 3 to 9 IQ points, and the average was a 5 IQ point reduction. So in New Zealand, we fluoridate at 0.7 to 1 part per million. So we're lowering children's IQ between 3 to 5 IQ points on average in New Zealand right now. So in Auckland, Wellington, all these places we're fluoridating right now. This is what's happening and what's going on. This is directly out of the report, and it shows at 1.5 milligram per litre, there's a 6 IQ point reduction. And going across to 0.7, which is the lowest level, which Cambridge will be fluoridated at, there's a 3 IQ point reduction. So you move across to 1 part per million, you get that 5 IQ point reductions. That's what we're basing that information off. When you compare it with lead, what we're saying is fluoride is the new lead, because lead was known to be a neurotoxin right through the late 70s, 80s, and the Ministry of Health defended lead right up until 1996, when we took lead out of petrol and paint. So we've got precedent here. 20 years later, in 2017, I think it was, we found that lead was actually lowering children's IQ about 4.25 IQ points. That's why we say lead is fluoride is new lead. We're at the point now where we're in 1996 for lead. This is exactly where we are right now. The latest as from the Rotorua District Council is they've asked some questions of the Ministry of Health. That's been circulated to you, and it's basically a non-response. So they haven't actually answered the question, which is, so I know Councillor Brown's going to ask me what's the latest and what's the Ministry of Health say, and that's what they're saying. They're not responding to these questions. We need to ask questions, right? So what impact is a 5 IQ point reduction? So we're going to halve the number of geniuses and increase by 50% the number of those that are mentally impaired. This is well established. It's general knowledge in terms of what this is happening. And it's a shift right down the curve. This is just, IQ is just one issue. There's an increase in ADHD. Riddell 2019 showed a 600% increase in ADHD, backed up by Dewey 2022 that showed a similar amount.
Oh, that's just a reminder that it's 1 minute to go.
1 minute,
So,
cool, wrapping up. So what I'm asking is the council can actually do something. So you can ask for an interim injunction. And I suggest you contact Lisa Hanson. That email's been circulated. And we need the Ministry of Health to answer questions. We can't just sit back and just say, one person's going to make the decision for us and we're just going to accept it. It just it can't happen. you know. So the education is going to continue. We're going to be speaking around the country. We're at a tipping point now, I believe. We're kind of at the point where people understand the issue now. They understand this is the top science in the world, and it's just a matter of time now. So I would say 6 months. That's when the US court case is in 29th of January, 2024 in the US. And we'll get the results hopefully in February, and that'll be the end of it. So it's finished. So I really appreciate any questions, please.
Thank you, Kane. Are there any questions? Oh, okay. Yes, Mike.
You can go next, Andrew. So Kane, so my understanding is natural fluoridation is around 0.2, just natural fluoridation.
Yes, yeah, about 0.1 to 0.2. Yep.
Yeah.
On general. Yep.
Right, but these studies, because I did read the papers, so the studies sort of conclude at any level, fluoridization is potentially not safe.
Correct.
Right, but the natural stuff, obviously, sort of, yeah, you have to have that.
So, in India, they have a high level of fluoride. They take it out of the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So places like Auckland that have had some fluoridization since, I think it was 1966.
Yep.
So a long time. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I understand there's two sides to this. I totally understand that. But I'm just looking at some place like Auckland where, you know, roughly a lot of people live there. And if the IQs have been reduced, well, and I know it's not right, but we're sort of all in it together, which doesn't make it right. But the testing ground has sort of been Auckland for over, what's that, sort of 50 odd years. So just what's your comments on that?
So the evidence is saying they've had 3 generations of lowering of IQ between 3 to 5 IQ points.
And there's data on that for places like Auckland?
No, because in New Zealand, we only use the Broadbent study, which is the NCP would consider the Broadbent study low quality. So there's not enough data. We haven't done the studies on Auckland.
Right.
So that's the answer. That we don't even done the research.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Ashley Bloomfield passed this, and as my understanding, the day before he stepped out of his job, which does consume me a little bit. I see presidents pardon people just before they bail as well. You know, it never sits comfortably with me. So that does sit in the back of my mind. But I'm assuming Ashley, you know, I read the Prime Minister's scientific report and all that sort of thing, which you guys would refute, and I understand that. So it's just what I guess we're grappling with what research for me, though it's mandated to me doesn't mean everything, because if it's wrong, it still should be challenged. But that's a personal Mike Pettit point of view. So I am very much sitting on the fence of what I believe is correct here. And having come from a place where my kids have gone through with no fluoridization for the majority of their life because we live in the country, and I've got a 21-year-old with no fillings, not one filling, but she brushes her teeth every day with fluoridated toothpaste. So yeah, what's been mandated, I personally don't really not that comfortable with, only based on the evidence. I've got half a dozen kids, and none of them have got big tooth decay issues here, but they're all middle class white New Zealanders. Does that make a difference? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my kids do brush their teeth, but these education programs too. I think the government here for me has just gone quick fix, because this thing here, this Child Smile program seems like it clearly works. I've had it going for 20 odd years in Scotland. Yeah, I'd much rather see that happening than be mandated and being told we have to fluoridate our water. That's just my personal point of view.
Can I just make one quick comment about the Gluckman-Skeek review, right? So they use the Broadbent study as the answer. There's 52 out of 55 human IQ studies, and the Gluckman-Skeek review uses the Broadbent study. That the first iteration of that report, in there they said that the drop of 1 IQ point is a function of no significance, right? So we contacted them and said, no, it's actually 7 IQ points. So what they did, and you can actually see this, they changed it to the drop of 1 standard deviation, which is 15 IQ points, is a function of no significance. And you can still see that. That's referencing the Harvard study from 2012, right? A bit of detail here, but that's a 7 IQ point drop. So there's 2 things going on, right? Firstly, they're fully aware that it's lowering children's IQ, 7 IQ points, right? And secondly, they've tried to cover that up. This NTP review is way up here compared to the Cluckman Skeg review.
Thank you, Kane. That's a really detailed response, I guess, for people who don't have the depth of knowledge or the scientific background, for what you're saying. I mean, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just pointing out there's very technical interpretations there. Now, Andrew, are you going to ask or anything?
Thanks through you, Madam Chair. I'm just interested in the Auckland thing. So you're saying that the Auckland 3 generations, their IQ is 3 to 5 points lower than the rest of the New Zealand population?
It's not me. The NTP review is saying that there's a 3 to 5 IQ point reduction as a result of fluoridation. So they've had it since 1966, which is 25 years, 75 years, right?
So we've actually got no proof, though, that that is the case, from the fact that a study says that's what should have been.
Correct. We don't do the research on it. I'm extrapolating from the NTP report. Yeah.
Okay, I'm all for open scientific debate, and I mean that's how science advances. My question is around the tactics that's being adopted here of district councils joining a judicial review to debate something that to me probably is better debated at the Ministry of Health level between experts on either side of an issue like this. That to me instinctively seems like the right forum for this take place, rather than this forum where we don't have the depth of expertise, and then the whole judicial review. It's kind of like it just strikes me as the inappropriate way to advance this case. How do you answer that?
So you would be taking an interim injunction. You wouldn't be doing the judicial review. The judicial review is done by New Health New Zealand, and you're just tacking on to that to basically buy you some time. That's all it is. So New Plymouth, for example, is now fluoridated. That happened on the 31st of July. They could have taken up an interim injunction, and they chose not to. But just going back to your point, the Ministry of Health's policy is to promote fluoridation. So there's no debate.
Through you, Madam Chair, maybe further to that point, online we have Judith Shane from Simpson Grierson, who we've invited to present a small item with respect to council's role, I guess, just to give us clarity in that one. So if you're able to invite Judith to speak, please.
Thank you, Dawn. Yes, welcome, Judith. It'd be great to have your insights on this complex question. Oh, sorry, we can't hear you.
Yeah, kia ora. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Thank you. Yes, I've been asked to speak, and I can perhaps just address that last point that was made first, perhaps, might be a good idea. So it seems to me the request for an interim injunction isn't what the community board resolution is. So you might just want to review that. I think the resolution, reading from the report, considers joining the legal review of the Director General of Health's directives. to 14 legal counsel. So it does sound like it's about joining the judicial review rather than bringing the council bringing its own interim injunction. And but the matters that I'd like to talk about are probably relevant to both anyway. So perhaps if we just, I'm not a medical expert, obviously, I'm a legal expert, and I'm, I can tell you a little bit about the background history to where the decision rests where it is now, and some of the things that you need to think about in terms of your role as a council in the decision today. So I'll just talk about those 2 points. So in 2014, LGNZ first grappled with this issue following a request from a lot of councils and passed a remit urging central government to amend legislation so that the decision-making powers about fluoridation of drinking water rested with the Director General of Health rather than with local authorities. So the government perhaps partly listened to that and introduced a bill in 2016 that would shift decision-making about community water fluoridation, but it was going from local authorities to district health boards. And the local authorities were still going to have some sort of, a role and be de facto decision makers where the health board didn't use their powers. So in 2017, LGNZ made their submission on the bill, recommending that it was such an important national issue. Director General of Health should be the one to decide the issue of fluoridation. Some of LGN's arguments in the submission, and this was, a submission on behalf of all of the councils, argued that it wasn't for councils to make judgments about complex scientific research that concerned the value of fluoride to dental and general health, and evaluate, the counterclaims about the potential harm of fluoride. That wasn't a function for councils, and those judgments were best made at that national level with the Ministry of Health being the primary organisation, and that should have the scientific capability to properly assess, any claims and counterclaims. In addition, the LGNZ submission, believed that there was a lot of resources and legal fees that some councils were facing in relation to fluoride decisions, and that wasn't a good use of ratepayer funds. So to take that decision making away from councils or responsibility for it and putting it at that national level was more appropriate. In the LGNZ submission, they also still wanted community consultation and for the cost of that to be paid for, if there was fluoridation to be done, to be paid for at a national level, which so some of those things weren't listened to. So finally in 2021, only 2 years ago, a supplementary order paper on the bill provided that they would shift the decision making to the Director General of Health, and that amendment came into effect in December 2021. So although I think the comment was made that the former Director General of Health, Ashley Bloomfield, only made the decision, the day before he left, I expect the decision was in the making before that, given that the power for the Director General of Health to provide for directions, if they were going to, had been in place since December 2021. So moving into the second part of what I was going to quickly talk to you about, you're in the position today where you have got a direction from the Director General of Health. You've got this judicial review challenge that New Health has filed in relation to the Director General's direction to your council and other councils. And then today you are dealing with the recommendations from the Community Board. So those recommendations you need to think about with your Local Government Act decision-making hat on. And first you need to consider the significance of the issue and the proposed decision, and the council staff in your report before you have identified its low significance in terms of the assessments under your significance and engagement policy. So part of those, that decision of significance and thinking about your role for your community is being financially prudent in any decisions that you make. So you need to think about in light of the fact that responsibility for decisions about fluoridation of water now sit with the Director General, you need to think about whether it's sufficiently significant or financially prudent for the council to investigate this new report on fluoridation that you've heard about, and whether you should be consulting the public about it. Because as LGNZ noted, councils aren't experts in this area, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, the decision making is now not at your level. In relation to joining the proceedings, you need to think about whether you have any budget you could spend for that purpose. So this applies to whether you're going to join the proceedings or bring your own interim injunction, which isn't what the community board resolution is recommend. You know, it wasn't the recommendation from the community board. So do you have budget that you could spend for that purpose, and what would be your objective in joining? And are those things matters that you should seek your community's views on? In which case, you know, the community might want to know, well, what's the prospects of success, or what are the benefits for the council in joining the proceedings? So thinking about what the benefit might be for the council, and this is very ballpark, even if the judicial review challenge is successful, in general, when a judicial review about decision making, you know, by any body is challenged and the decision is successful, then the decision is returned back to the decision maker to get their process right and to remake the decision again, taking into account any things that they, you know, the court has said they haven't taken into account, or disregarding anything, or getting the law right about the whole decision making. So if the judicial review challenge finds that the Director General didn't use the proper process, then the Director General may just then go back through, make the proper process, and you could end up with the same result. So I think you need to think carefully about whether your Local Government Act responsibilities, you know, this is a good decision for the council and its community to be involved at this point, or whether you wait until and see what happens, especially as we've heard, if the American courts are also considering this same report, then that might be an opportunity for more learning and discussion at the health level about this report and the claims made.
Thank you, Judith. That's been very helpful. Now I've got a few questions from councillors. Marcus first and then Roger.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Judith. And I think going back to the COVID and things like that, council doesn't know about COVID. And I think that was appropriately handled by the Ministry of Health to give us directions. But like, Kane, what's your qualifications to be able to interpret and disseminate the data that you've presented that would give council and our voters confidence that we've got all the right information?
So I've been working on this for nearly 11 years now. I work with PhD scientists to pull this information together, and this is the top NTP. You can go and look at the NTP report yourself and get some feedback on it. The point is that the Ministry of Health has given a non-response. I suspect there's a hell of a lot of politics going on right now to try and explain this report away.
Just on that point though, Kane, I mean, we have got the letter from the Ministry of Health, and they do say in there that that's the one to the Rotorua Lakes District Council, that they are keeping a watching brief on this. So, and they gave further references or links, you know, to like the Gluckman report and things like that. So I think it did give me a bit of comfort that they're not ignoring the issue, that they are watching things. And by the sound of what Judith said, it is going through the courts in the US. And I would imagine that there'd be a response if there was a decision made there. Is that unreasonable?
Well, the thing is, we've refuted everything they've put in front of us. So the Gluckman Skeg review, we've got a complete rebuttal of that. It's been 3 months. We've managed to go through this report and pull it apart and know exactly what's going on. I suspect you'll find that they know exactly what's going on.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Roger.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Judith, thank you for that. It raises a couple of interesting points in my mind. And the first is that irrespective of what decision we make today, the review that's mentioned in this paper that we're considering is going to go ahead, whether we support it or not. And the result of that review will not be changed by whether we support the review or do not support the review. That review is going to go ahead. It will come out with some form of definite response that will then inform us better as to what the legal situation is. When we look at our significance policy, then because any decision we make will have no impact on the future, I question whether our role is now to consider it, because the result's going to come through anyway.
Can I just quickly respond? So in response to that, I would suggest that if you end up putting fluoride in the water in Cambridge, and then this report comes out, well, it's a draft final basically, shows it's lowering children's IQ, and then you're going to be explaining to the people in Cambridge why you didn't take an interim injunction, because it's going to be widely known.
Can I comment on that? The review is to whether the process of the Director General of Health was correct or incorrect. And if it was incorrect, then it's on the Director General to actually correct the process.
Yeah, it's wider than just the process though. It's actually the health effects. It's wider than just that.
Yeah.
Thanks for that discussion. I think we've covered everything pretty clearly. Oh, Andrew, yes.
Sorry. Kane, you compared the lead thing in the 80s and 90s to fluoride, and I'm struggling to. I mean, it's clear that excessive doses of fluoride are toxic. Got no problems with that. But the lead as to fluoride thing seems a long bow to me, in that lead had a lot of commercial applications. There would have been a lot of lobbying, you know, kind of like smoking, that whole thing with the commercial interests. When it comes to fluoride, I'm struggling to find it. I mean, the only ones that seem to have a real commercial interest are dentists, and they're actually for fluoridation, fluoridation big time, as far as I can gather. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, so it's a waste product from the phosphate fertilizer industry. So instead of spending about $4,000 a tonne to get rid of it, they're selling it to councils to put on the water supply. We're drinking a waste product. That's the answer to that.
That's the commercial interest.
That's the commercial interest. Yep.
Yeah, doesn't really compare to the lead situation.
It does.
So,
it's a 4 IQ point reduction on average. That's the comparison.
Yeah. So a comparison from that angle, I get what you're saying. Yeah, having listened to everything, it just seems to me the review is happening. The decision is being made in the right place by people who are actually experts. I've read the paper, you know, the response to the Rotorua. The Department of Health is taking it seriously, is my view, and they know what they're doing. I just can't see why they would be supporting something that, you know, I do not believe they have the disinterest of the New Zealand public at heart.
Yeah, can I just quickly, last comment, right? Last comment. We're dealing with the belief system. So you cannot believe that the government could do harm. We're dealing with a belief system and orthodoxy. It takes a long time to change that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I think we've, Marcus, there would be the last question, if that's all right. I'm just trying to.
And just wondering, Kane, like, are you talking on behalf of the Te Awamutu Community Board, or are you talking on behalf of like Fluoride Free NZ, which is like a lobby group? Like, Do you have to declare a conflict of interest on who you're talking?
I'm talking on behalf of the Te Community Board. We're all on board with it.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've had a really good discussion on it. I think the points have been made is that at the moment, the decision-making power has been taken away from councils and given to the Director General of Health. Okay, so at the moment, it's not within our ambit to actually be making decisions about the fluoridation issue. But of course, we do have the freedom whether or not we want to join an action. Okay. I do understand that a similar action was taken earlier. Judith, I think you might be able to help us there. I think there has already been a judicial review on this issue, like with South Taranaki. or something.
Yes, there's been a couple of cases where it went right to the Supreme Court with the South Taranaki District Council and the New Health. So that was at the point when the council was making the decision to fluoridate. And, it wasn't, the argument there was about the New Zealand Bill of Rights and the right to refuse to undergo medical treatment. When it got to the Supreme Court, the court felt that the Supreme Court felt, unlike that some of the lower courts, and this was a majority of the court, that right potentially was engaged by the inclusion of fluoridation in water, but that the justified limitations in Section 5 of the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act justified the decision to include the fluoridation or make the fluoridation decision that the council had made. So the council was successful at every step, but the court held different reasons for that. And I'm sure that in this judicial review proceeding that New Health are raising now about the Director General of Health, it appears to be that the Director General of Health in making the decision did not consider Section 11, but given the fact that the court has already found that there's a justified limitation on that right, I mean, it's not my role to talk about the prospects of success of their current judicial review, but it would seem that Section 11 has been well traversed in the other cases.
There's a mountain of science that's come out since then, though. So it's all changed.
Yeah, and so what we're faced with is making a determination, I guess, today as to whether or not the science that's occurred since that time would justify us getting involved in a legal action. Now, you've presented very confidently, I guess, that the findings of those reviews are flawed because the peer review of those reviews was that there was no need to change the regulatory framework for fluoride. But you are saying we should ignore that and it's justified, take account of all of that research. I mean, there is expert evidence to show that even though those conclusions have been put forward by you, they are deeply questioned by the scientific community.
No, they're not. They're not questioned. This is the top science body in the world. It's been peer reviewed twice by the National Academies of Science, Engineering and Medicine, which is a top science organisation in the United States.
Yes, and I've got a copy of that, and it says that there should not be any further changes made at this point in time. And so if you're wanting us to ignore that expert evidence, yeah, I do feel that we're sort of departing from our evidence-based decision-making, that's all. However, I'm not making the decision today. I'm just trying to summarise the discussion, and then we've got some recommendations in front of us. And I just would like to see whether or not there's anyone that would like to move the recommendations. Oh, yes, Mike.
And I'm just trying to find it, but I can't. So I took a photo, but I can't bring it up again. There was quite a timeline for implementation. Can someone just remind us when that was? Was it July 24 or was it?
Through you, Madam Chair, and timeline for implementation of fluoridation for Cambridge is dependent on the signing of a funding agreement, 9 months from the signing of the agreement, and that agreement hasn't yet been signed, but it is close.
Right, so these reports from the states, etc., will be before then. Yep, thanks for that clarification.
Oh, yes, Dale.
I just have a question. How much does it cost us to put fluoride in the water?
Martin might be able to help us with that question.
Yep, from memory, the capital cost is covered by the Ministry of Health for installing the equipment to do it. And I think there was $100,000 a year operating cost.
So set up the inclusion of fluoridation, the ongoing is only 100,000 per year. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the ongoing operating cost, yeah. That's to pay for the chemical and the upkeep of the equipment. Yeah.
Right. All right. So I'm going back to my recommendation. So the recommendation is to receive the report of Martin Mould, Manager, Water Services, and to note that the Tuamutu and Kihiki Community Board recommended the Service Delivery Committee do the following. 1, investigates the National Toxicology Program fluoride report and hold public consultation so the community can be heard. And 2, joins the legal review of the Director General of Health's directives to 14 local councils to fluoridate parts of their water supplies. And then C, agrees not to proceed with the recommendations referred to in B. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Roger. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Kane. Appreciate your presentation today, and thank you, Judith, as well, for giving us the legal view of it. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so our next item on the agenda is the Transportation Activity Report, and that's on page 24. And I invite Brian to the desk, front desk. Morning, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morning, everybody. So quite a bit in this report here, but I'll take the report as read if I may, and just wanted to touch on a couple of highlights there. A little bit different from my normal report at 3.1 there is achievements for the 22-23 year, where I've just by the numbers talked about the changes in road network length and traffic on the network and everything. And then under the item 3.5, the Victoria Bridge, I talk about there the extent of repairs to the concrete deck and rust removal and things like that, exceeding initial expected quantities. So there is an increased cost to that contract. And we have asked Waka Kotahi for some additional funding towards that project. Then under the 3.7, the Pathways project, again with contract tenders coming in and estimates and the design process getting to more of a final state, the costs have increased there. And we went back to Waka Kotahi and made them aware of those extra costs, and they have committed to funding those extra costs, so it doesn't come from the ratepayer's pocket, which is terrific, which is really good news. And they were really impressed with the design work and the consultation and everything we'd done with those projects, and hence they were really, their staff championed the support of providing that extra funding for us, which is great. Under item 5.1, recycling and bin auditing. So over the last nearly 3 months, we've audited 16,000 bins and found that only 3.5% had any significant contamination in them. So that was quite a bit better than expected. But yeah, we've obviously got, plenty more bins to audit, plenty more neighbourhoods that we haven't visited yet to look at it.
Brian, and how's the performance of the contract going? Like the collection and the processing of those recycling bins. Any
Yes.
just give me an idea of how
Yeah.
that's going?
So certainly the reliability of the collection has improved over the last few months. So we're getting a lot less notice of missed bins or late collections, which has been great.
Yeah.
The contractor still has a turnover of staff, and recently lost the manager, who has been replaced just recently. So there's again another sort of a learning process for a new manager. But yeah, we have seen some consistent improvement, and I guess certainly part of that is the work from my staff, who are just on it every day with the new waste team leader, working on it every day.
Excellent, thank you.
I've just got a couple more points, and then and then we'll be all up for questions. So bus patronage, again, by the numbers, it's up 25% on the previous year. So that's a really big jump from about 130,000 to 172,000. So trips per year. And total mobility, which I wasn't able to report in this report because we hadn't got the data yet from the regional council, but that is up 20% too on last year, to nearly 3,300 trips a year using the subsidised taxi service, which is good. Yeah, but I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Roger, would you like to lead off, and then Philip?
Yeah, probably my favourite subject, this is, great. And looking at the achievement by numbers, and I can acknowledge the fact that we've got increase in bus trips, but also our objective of getting mode shift is to get people out of those damn cars. And the figures that the VKT obviously is not number of cars, but it's number of kilometres travelled. But it would indicate that we're still seeing an increase in that. What are we going to do to try and get that number down? Do we need to look at more local public transport coming in to have more of an impact on reducing that VKT?
Yeah.
Road spikes might not go down too well. Well, the tyres would go down too well. Yes.
It's a very good question, Roger, and I guess it's probably too big a question to answer here this morning. But we know that the predictions are because of the growth in population of the region, and Waipa is a growing area in the region, that all things being equal, the vehicle kilometres will increase each year with that population. So while we can do things that will get our urban residents travelling, on walking, cycling, taking the bus, we will always have a large rural population and a lot of freight and other things like that, which will always contribute to increasing VKT. So I guess that's why the government is really targeting the urban VKT, because that's where, and the large centres, that's where that you can have the biggest impact. So there's, I believe, information coming up with the work that the regional council and local authorities are doing together on VKT, a plan and a program for reduction. So that's coming, and you'll be exposed to that at the regional council committee meetings. And then obviously we've got our mode shift urban mobility plans, which again, we've got more information coming up later today on that as well.
And I suppose one of the things that it does highlight is the importance of the work that we're doing on Cambridge connections, because if, as you say, and you just said it, that we can expect the VKT to continue to climb, then that's going to have a continued impact on our network, which is already stressed and strained as it is now.
Parking, all of those things.
Well, all of the things. And so really it does really emphasize the criticality of the output from that Cambridge connections, didn't it?
Yep, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Brian, for your report. Well, really positive report. It's just, I haven't really got a question, but just to comment how it's great to read this positive report, and Sally's work and her team with regards to the auditing and bins, hopefully the educational promotion that you've done recently on that is helped achieve some of that. So yeah, just a great report, and congratulations to her and the team and things like that, particularly on that, because I know that's costing ratepayers a lot of additional funding with regards to those bins and contamination and things like that. So if the education program has been working, is working, then it's great success. So yeah, thanks for your report. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Liz, and then Lou.
Thank you, Claire. Hey, Brian, I'm mindful that we used to have a really quite a strong voice come through Graham Webber around rural roads, and I guess I just wanted to kind of touch on that this morning, because I am starting to get a sense that those who don't have a sealed road, that live quite some distance from our towns, who are regularly promised that a grader will go up their road, aren't seeing that level of service at the moment. And of course, they are our rural sector and they pay rates. And I guess, could you look into that? Because, yeah, I'm just hearing quite a bit of, I'm getting some feedback around lots of really large potholes, and I appreciate it's winter, but a grader, I think, you know, we have touched on this quite a few times over the many years. And I think that maybe that drop in service might be happening. I don't know. I'd quite be keen on a comment from you.
Certainly. So we are, you know, experiencing increase in potholes both on our sealed roads and our unsealed roads. So it really is about the weather at the moment. So while we can grade the roads more frequently, when everything is soft and slushy, those potholes are going to come back pretty quickly. The contractors are out there. We've done, certainly in the last month and a half, we've done a lot of repairs, some quite big repairs, quite costly repairs on rural roads and urban streets, but also added, you know, metal to unsealed roads and graded roads and things like that. But we are, until we get some drying weather and things start to dry out, we are on a hiding to nothing virtually, you know, trying to keep filling potholes and things. Yeah, so we I guess, you know, we're asking for the patience of our ratepayers because everybody is experiencing it at the moment.
Thanks, Brian. And look, I absolutely understand the current situation. I'm kind of hearing that it's spread over multiple years. So it's just the same, you know, farmers who are quite a distance away from town. So I can give you some road names perhaps, and that might be helpful.
Thank you, Liz. Then I've got Lou and then Mike. Yeah, I'm just conscious, I will let you have your questions, but I'm conscious that we have lost time with the fluoridation item. So I'll try and get people to move through these other items nicely and quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Brian. An excellent report. I just wanted to touch on what Councillor Gordon was talking about a little earlier. I felt that we've seen the bus usage accelerate. I think a lot of that, as you said in your report, is possibly the subsidisation of the fare and keeping it going. I feel it's going to be very, very important to maintain that structure, because with the actual new electric buses and the increase in frequency, we really do need to probably continue with that subsidisation from regional council and continue to promote this, because I think that's been the key issue to me, has been the lack of rapidity and the lack of return for a lot of people. So they've gone back to using their cars simply because they're unable to do a return trip within the timeframes that they want. So, you know, if we can get that system up and operating, the charge rates out at the land that we're talking of in Kiki, I think that'd be great. So I just wondered if we could make sure, and I think this council would possibly support at regional level, the continuation of that subsidy to continue that urban mobility.
Yeah, so just around the subsidy, that was the half price that central government was paying for that period of time. So that's come off now, so it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. But as we get our new buses and our new timetable, that will be really a time for really good promotion, because you're absolutely right. If more people find the bus convenient and there's no parking problem when you get to the other end and things like that, we'll see a steady increase in use. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be brief in the interest of time. Just two questions, and if we could just get your comments sort of on a on track, off track kind of sense. The road resurfacing at 65 Ks over the network, I get it something like about just under 6%. Is that about what you're expecting is the first question. Second one is the cameras. Feel like we've been saying for a little while, they're coming. I'm getting a sense that might be going off track.
Right. So reseals, we would typically do a bit more than 65 kilometres. So, I'd be more comfortable if we were consistently doing around 80 kilometres a year. And that's, to be covering the network in good time. But it's been a cost pressure. So we overspent our budget for resale slightly last year, and we've managed to get 65 kilometres done. And that's around the high price of bitumen, which is an oil-based product. So the price of oil barrel goes up, bitumen goes up the same amount, if not more. And then, the cameras, yes. We are making good progress now. It was slow at the beginning of the year. We were trying to solve a really costly problem, which was getting power supplies to some of these cameras, which we could be talking about a $15,000 bill for each camera to install a power supply. So we had to come up with a better way of doing that. We've done that, but it involves some technology which comes from Italy. We've bought all that now. And so you'll see a lot more rapid rollout of those cameras.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me this final opportunity. And it is a couple of questions which are interlinked regarding Cambridge connections. The initial report time frame for report back was going to be June the 30th. There's been an extension to September, and I believe now that there's a further extension outside of our control because we're waiting for the data to come through so we can base some of the decisions on that. But I believe that it's now end of December. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Now, that a little bit concerns me because obviously we've got LTP coming up and our consideration of the input into that LP is really starting to heat up and we're getting it in now. If our Cambridge Connections report is not coming back until end of December, which effectively means consideration in February. Are we currently working on the business plans, and what are the business plans that we're currently working on for consideration in the LTP, even though we haven't yet got to the confirmed data? I'm really worried that we're going to miss out because if we're not in the LTP for some of those plans, it's probably another 3 years down the track.
Yeah. So we have put forward I guess a draft project or a placeholder project into the LTP figures, which will provide, I guess, seed funds to get going on any detailed investigations that are needed to start to implement the overall program business case. So we put forward a sum of money each year for the next 5 years. That we think is, doable in terms of being able to start to implement the recommendations.
I'm particularly talking, I suppose, about, the bridge siting is one of those things which is not critical. It needs to happen, but timing is downstream. But I think the more critical is our public transport business program. Particularly with being on Cambridge Connections, the feed that we're already getting is that we should be looking at more localised public transport, whichever system it is.
Yeah.
Is that going to be possible to begin to implement in the first year of the LTP?
Again, we've got a financial case which updates the previous business case for public transport, and that's in the LTP with predicted sort of running costs for various services. And that is an item that we'll be talking about more this afternoon in the workshop on public transport.
Okay, good. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, and thanks for those questions, though, Roger. Yeah, and I've just got one quick question about the Ohaupo signalised crossing. It was put out to tender. Was there a successful tender?
So the tenders haven't closed yet.
Oh, okay.
So shortly though, yes.
Yeah, I'm very keen to see how that goes. Thank you. And also wanted to commend Megan Jolly on her award, that safety award, which is fantastic to see.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so no further questions. So we'll just take the recommendation that the report of Brian Hudson about the transportation activity.
Happy to move that positive.
Thank you, Phil. And Roger's going to second. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. And Brian's going to stay with us.
Yes,
during this
you've
time.
got
Yeah.
me till the morning tea break. So
Dear
I'll
me.
be quick.
Okay, so the next one's Hall Street, is that
Hall
right?
Street,
Yeah,
yes.
great to see that. Over
Thank
to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is just a quick summary which outlines the process. So we did some public consultation with Hall Street residents about the scheme to seal out to the curbs and fix the drainage problems. So we did that and got some pretty much overwhelmingly positive feedback from the residents saying, great, we're looking forward to this, please get on with it. We have some additional improvements in there where we've being a number of crossroads intersections down Hall Street, where we want to slow the traffic down, make sure people do give way at the give way signs, and because this middle school is not far away, make sure there's better pedestrian crossing points across the intersections. So we've included that into the design, which again the residents have all supported. So just happy to take it as read and take any questions committee members have.
One from Liz, thank you. And then Lou.
Yeah, Brian. Hey, look, of course, this has been a very long kind of, exercise for staff, because I understand that there has, the trees along Hall Street have always been problematic, and I know it has not been an easy fix. I have been obviously regularly engaged on this particular topic, and I remember several years ago doing some community consultation on Hall Street. All I can say now is that there's some very happy residents. I checked in with them again just in the last couple of days, and they're very happy with the suggested plans and the fact that they're going to see the upgrade. So I'd be delighted to move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I just see if Lou, did you want to say anything further?
Fine, I wasn't going to move a second.
Oh.
Just quickly, a
Sorry.
question, and this is just a question as far as, I just see that with the root systems, you're talking of varying the depth of your pavements, etc. Now, are you going to reinforce that? Because what's going to happen very quickly is those routes are going to expand and that pavement will be back to where you start. So you're going to have to look quite seriously in your construction methods of some method of actually doing that, actually either reinforcing rods or something in there to actually stop that pavement buckling and bowing in a very, very rapid fate.
Yeah, a good point. We actually dug quite a few holes along the gravel part of the road under the trees and down to the depth that we were working at. We didn't find any roots in those locations, but we know that there are some roots right actually at the surface in the road seal, and those are the ones that we're just going to very carefully work around with the asphalt and to minimise any damage. So we hope we'll get a surface that's reasonably robust, but it will take some ongoing maintenance long term. We're never going to get away from that.
Thanks for that assurance. That's great. So now I've got a mover. I've got Liz moving and Phil seconding. Sorry, Lou. For the recommendation, all in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Yes, it's wonderful, actually. And now we've got the next item, which is the Targa New Zealand request for temporary road closure.
If we just take that as read.
It's pretty standard. And there is a typographical error on the second page of the report, of the recommendation on page 70. in the second bullet point, it's just, it should be, it's not Manager Road, it's Mangari Road. Yeah, that's all. But anyway, happy.
I'm happy to move that.
Roger, thank you. All in favour, please say aye.
Can I
That's
just make
carried.
one comment? I just wanted to say that given that we don't get objections on this, because other events we do, but given that we don't get objections on this is obviously a really good, that we know that we've got the neighbours on side, because the Targa rally can be quite disruptive to people living on the rural roads as well.
Thanks, Liz. And now we have the next item, the Karapiro 100K fly. And Liz, you're excluding yourself from this discussion. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, no objections to this road closure, and I'd just like to take it as read. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have the recommendation on page 75. So you're going to move, Mike, and a seconder. Thank you, Mike Pettit. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Now, we're just going to have the communities. Is that you then, Brian? Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah. So we're now at, should we take a break for morning tea? I'm just having a look at how we're going. So we are only about 10 minutes behind. Yeah. So so we've just, how long would we normally have a break for? 15. So we could just have 10 minutes if that's all right. So back by 10:15. Yeah. Thank you very much. Services activity report. Oh, actually, is the live stream starting? Yeah. Oh, so our next report after our break is the Community Services Activity Report. And we've got Brad Ward here. Welcome, Brad. Yeah, over to you.
Awesome. Nā mihi o te ata, te he Māori ora kia koutou katoa. I will just make firstly just draw your attention to an error in my report, page 83, I think, in your diligent, page 5 of my report anyway. It notes the design of a new entrance with mana whenua and geotechnical investigations to progress at Te Amutu War Memorial Park. While this is true for Te Kuutu, these specific components are not part of the program at Memorial Park for this year. That's future works. The public toilets that burnt down at Te Kuutu on Thornton Road will be opened by summer. Contractors are ready to go once we receive our resource consent, which we hope will be in the next couple of weeks. And we'll do some social media posts around that at the time, once we have greater clarity on timing. Some really good results in our education program at the Te Amutu Education and Research Centre, which is thriving at the moment. Last Thursday alone, we had 173 people through the facility, with 141 of those being students as part of the Land Wars program before they went out on site to some significant sites. So this month already for August, we've already had over 500 students through the facility. And in some other really good news, with the overdue fines being removed from our fees and charges. So this is into the new financial year, so not entirely for the last quarter, but a good news story I thought I'd share with you nonetheless, was with the overdue fines being removed from our fees and charges, we've had a significant amount of lost books returned to the library, with one person alone returning over 20 books in the first week.
Really? Wow.
So we've from one person alone over 20. So we've had some really good positive feedback from the exercise, and I think there's only 10 or 11 libraries in New Zealand now which aren't doing that overdue, fine-free movement. So a really good success story for us there.
Thank you. I've just got a question from
Brett, that's like a real kind of good news story. Is that something that we're going to put out into our socials and stuff like that to let people know what's the positive impact removing those fees has done in our communities?
Well, we'll definitely be linking in with that. So just this morning when I was just collating a few ideas and thoughts from the team, that was the information that came to me. So I thought it was too good not to share with you straight away, but we will be putting that out into the media.
The other thing I've got with the new toilet block and stuff, I know there's a company in Cambridge who is interested in working with council. Like, are we working with our local businesses to restore those toilet blocks and to use their facilities and talk to them about what they can offer?
Correct. The supplier that's providing them is the supplier that built them previously, so it's a local supplier.
Okay.
Thanks. I'd just like to hold the other questions, please, just to let
I'm happy to take questions now.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you. So Roger, I'm
Yes.
very happy to let you have a question.
Thank you,
And then
thank you,
Liz.
Madam Chair. Thanks, Brad. Over a couple of the previous reports that you've given to us, there was quite considerable mention about graffiti and vandalism that was creating quite an increased expense for us. What's the situation with that currently?
I'd say it's probably plateaued. It's still happening and still occurring in places, but it hasn't continued to spike. If anything, it may have come down a little bit. We still have our hot spots over the holiday periods, school holidays. But yeah, there hasn't been anything too significant recently.
In cases where we're either refurbing or replacing, as we're doing at Te Kuutu, are we making those entities graffiti free and making sure that we're using the kind of materials that inhibit graffiti?
We do try to find suppliers or material that is appropriate and can have the graffiti easily wiped off. We do have a really good contractor that has a product that they use, which does a really great job. And certainly we can, when we're doing some of our more concrete blocks, we can put a film wrap on it, which can have graffiti guard on it. So we do look at all those options when we are creating these.
Because that's a bit of a, I mean, it also doesn't look very good and gives us a bad name. It's great that we're managing that. Thanks.
Any other questions? I think Liz, you were next, weren't you? And then I think Bruce and then Mike.
Claire. Hey, Brett, I met up just a few days ago with the Cambridge Tree Trust, and I guess it reminded me of just the outstanding commitment they make to Cambridge and surrounds, and the huge amount of work that they do, which largely goes unrecognised. Is there some way that we can recognise this group? And I see 30 people out there every single Tuesday, plus other days. And it's just incredible, you know, the council reserves and the community spaces that they maintain for us. And it feels like we, you know, maybe not recognising them in the way that we could or should. Any ideas? Or is there something in place already?
There's a handful of organisations. Of the Cambridge Tree Trust is certainly one of them, but we do have others as well that we like to partner with and get on the ground with as well. So we don't have anything specifically in mind at the moment to recognise them, but happy to take any feedback.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that maybe we could work together around some of those organisations. It's just, you know, it's just incredible when I look at the spaces that they look after. So,
Bruce.
Thank you, Brad. Just a question on the rural reserves and the cameras being put on at Bournemouth Landing. And is there any in the future for Naroto to do the same thing? And secondly, are those cameras linked into the system, or will they be to the CCD at the police station? Because I think that then you might not have to have staff out there every day.
Yes and no. So where possible, yes. So for some sites, it's a little bit difficult with coverage to bring it back. So it's a combination of both of those. There is no immediate plans for cameras at Naroto. We are looking to trial some other measures there first. But there's no plans or budget for camera there at the moment.
Thank you. Mike.
Yeah. Thanks to the chair. Hey, Brad, just in a report, there's no info around the Cambridge Museum. Do we ask them for stuff? Is there, I mean, yeah, something like patronage and programs, you know, kids running through the place. Could we get a bit of info, but like the TA side?
Yeah, we can do. So the information we provide here for the Te Amiru one is obviously from our staff, which is pretty easily readable. I'm looking to start to form a bit more relationship with Grant and the Historical Society. So that's something I can certainly look to them for.
Right, thanks for that. And just on all the graph work from the surveys, yeah, really interesting just to see the patronage and how often people use these libraries, etc.
Lou.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. Just quickly, War Memorial Park, I went down there yesterday. I see the lanyard's gone again and everything. I was going to raise the flag there for today's VJ Day. Unfortunately, that's gone. And I just wanted to just relate to the, in your column here, as a design of a new entrance with Mana Whenua and the Heritage Maintenance Plan. I wonder whether the RSA should be actually consulted along with that, because we're all stakeholders in that total issue. That was just I don't know about the maintenance people, but particularly the RSA anyway.
Yeah, no, so certainly, so as I know at the top of my report or in my presentation today, the entrance way and the geotech is not part of the program for this, but when we do that, we'll certainly be linking the RSA, for sure.
Right. No, I just wanted to make sure that was actually, thank you.
Thank you. No other questions? Great. Wonderful report, Brad. And I note that on page 82, it mentions the work that's been completed with the cleanup, the stump removal, all that kind of thing, you know, which I guess from the storms and the cyclone and that. I just want to pass on our committee's real appreciation and congratulations to the team for all their hard work there to, you know, obviously they really care a lot about the presentation of our district, and I think they're really delivering on that, and you know that commitment's just wonderful for us to see. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, so now I've got a recommendation on page 79 that that we received the report of the community facilities. So I've got Mike Pettit and then Lou. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against. Thank you. Thank you. Great to see you. And now we've got the request for road names. So who's going to be presenting that? Scott.
Mike and Brendan.
Brendan. Well, they were here. They were here a moment ago. Oh yeah, I suppose, yeah, we've got a resident engineer now, so maybe Monty could take the seat and speak to this item, please, just in the interest of time. After all my efforts to try and keep us to time, and now we get, yeah.
Have you brought lunch, Liz?
Yes.
I thought you were going to,
Under lock and key, lid must stay on.
were they sourced from Lake Karapiro? Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, these guys are on their way. So just yeah, have a little break and talk among yourselves for a little while. We've got our team in front of us. Good morning, Mike. Nice to see you. Thanks for being joining us today with this item for the request for new road names, which is on page 107 of our agenda. So yeah, take it away, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll pass over to Brendan.
Cool, thank you. My name's Brendan. We're here to present the road names and some of the reserve names. We've got the names Kahu Street for the Amber Views development. We've got Awarua Crescent, Pa Road, Papa Tahi Lane, and Awarua Reserve. There's Kokihi Crescent, Liquidama Lane, Whitesbury Way for the Peak Muse development, and for the Cambridge Health Hub development, there's Sir Tristram Boulevard and Tavistock Place. These are the names that we are recommending to be approved, and I take the report as read.
Thank you, Brendan. Any discussion, any questions? All right, cool. Oh, yes, Liz.
Yeah. Look, of course, road naming can be quite a sensitive subject for a lot of our residents. So in reading this report, I did notice that there were some road names that the developer had suggested we'd had some other suggestions from other groups, particular iwi, that weren't taken up. But I'd like to think we've struck a really good balance here, a good balance of names that reflect the local area on times gone by. And it feels like we probably have struck that balance. I know this wouldn't have been an easy one for you both, but yeah, I was pretty happy with the report, but happy for further discussion on this.
Any other comments? Oh, yes, Dale Marie.
Oh, no, I'm going to not ask now because I've just read it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. So thanks, Liz, for those comments. I think yeah, you've highlighted it really well. It can be a sensitive issue, but we're trying to find balance, and yeah, so that's great. So we have a recommendation. I'm happy to move from the chair, and Liz is going to second. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Short and sweet. Great to see you. Yeah, thank you. And now our next item is contracts signed under delegated authorities. That's on page 122. I think I usually get you, Dawn, to just speak to this if there's anything there that you want to cover off for the committee.
Kia ora koutou, and yeah, thank you through the chair. So the one contract that is included in the report today is a result of a prior approval we had to move through early contractor involvement with Spartan Construction in terms of it. And as part of that process, this particular item has been identified as high risk if it's not secured early. So the decision has been made to move forward in terms of that procurement. So that's, yep.
That sounds good. Yeah, Andrew, you're happy to move, and a seconder, Mike Pettit, all in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And now we have a resolution to exclude the public. Thank you, Rod.